This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and intrapreneurs. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. Get ready to learn from other successes and failures. Today we have Joe Rare, who is a lifestyle entrepreneur. Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. We've just been talking about both our houses having works being done to it. So hopefully all the banging and everything is not going to happen on this recording. Fingers crossed.
There we go.
Okay, Joe, fantastic. Let's start with your economics degree that you did at UC Santa Barbara. So what made you choose an economics degree? Was it influenced by parents? Was it something you were passionate about? So why did you choose it?
Just business in general, to be honest. I mean, that's it. I wanted to, at the school that I chose to go to, I kind of had a choice to go to a few schools, and I choose the one with the beach, and which I think is funny because it kind of, I think it led me back to, really being a lifestyle entrepreneur. Right. The thing that's been interesting is, I kind of look at education and I go, well, how much of that did I really use? And it's been such a small sliver, really a lot of it had to be learned on the streets, had to be learned by trial and error. And really with online education available so easily now, I always think if I had to go back and do it again, man, I would have just gone straight into, entrepreneurship, probably pretty heavily.
Because there is a difference between sort of formal education and learning. So I talk on my podcast about eternally learning. You should be learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do a new course or listen to books or podcasts to build that knowledge up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I go through and I tell this to my team and my kids even at the same time. And I talk about like the ebbs and flows of life and business and how you just kind of go through and you get into phases that are just, they're learning phases. And if you kind of watch the rhythms of your life, you'll notice that you land in a spot where you end up doing a ton of time learning. And during those times, you're not focused somewhere else. So you kind of really give a lot of that attention. And that's been probably the majority of my life. I've really, kind of dove deep into those areas. When I'm in this phase of learning, I feel like everything. I'll read a book a day and, I'll listen to podcasts, I'll listen to trainings and do all those things. And like, I really get deep and then I come out of it and I go, okay, great. What can I take from that and actually go execute on it? Cause learning's great, but if you can't do something with it, I mean, it's a waste. It's a waste of time.
So it's a lot. What do you listen to? What type of books do you read? What's your fascination at the moment?
Nonfiction. Yeah. I literally to this day have never read a fiction book.
Wow. Okay.
I guess I probably did for school point something, but everything's nonfiction, everything's business books, everything's somebody's, biography and their journey and really learning those things. That's where I spend my time. It's funny if you turn on Netflix and the first thing I'm going to go for is documentaries, right? And I'm going to go towards those things. And I don't know where I got that natural inclination for that. But, my focus is always business entertains me, which is kind of, I guess, an odd thing for some people. But I guess that's the reason that I became such an entrepreneur is that I've just had a draw on for people who do very interesting, successful things, building businesses and the struggles that includes. I think it's even better than Hollywood, right? Because it's like real.
It's real, exactly.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. You can give a shout out or a couple of shout outs. What's a couple of your most recent books that you've either listened to or read that's very good?
Actually, Built to Sell is one that's been really interesting. I've done a ton because I've moved our kids to a different school just after Christmas. And so our drive each way is 20 minutes in the car. So I get and I do the trip. I take them to school in the morning. Then I have to pick up a kindergartner at just before 1. Then I have to come home and then I have to go pick up another one, a few hours later. And so that amount of driving, I get to jam through a lot of audio. So I've been listening to that. So Built to Sell, I think I've listened to about 12 times. Which is obnoxious. And most people are like, wow, but it's weird. You grab something different each time because of the context of your life in the moment.
Hmm.
Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson is literally sitting right here. I use this one. There's a lot of good. I'm working on some webinar stuff, and there's some cool stuff in there. Copywriting Secrets, which is sitting right here by Edwards, which is, they're obviously joined. And then Profit First was something that I've gone through about 6 times just recently. Profit First has been a brand new book that I've really gotten into. We implemented that model and it's really amazing. So I would tell anybody to check those out.
The one I'm listening to, I'm interested if you've read it, listening at right at this moment, is Traction.
I have the book, the hardcover, and I have not read it yet.
Dude,
and
it's really good.
Yeah. You're the second person in about 2 weeks who's mentioned that book. And I'm like, okay, I need to grab it. So I might just grab the audio and like start there.
Yeah.
Cause I've listened to, for example, I've listened to Expert Secrets. I love Russell's ability to tell stories. And I've listened to that probably twice. I've listened to it and now I've read the book a couple times, but maybe I'll start with the audio of Traction. That sounds awesome.
Traction's very good. I was quite late on this, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Oh yeah. I read that years ago. I love that.
That was
I think every entrepreneur should be forced to read E-Myth, E-Myth Revisited. Exactly. That is literally like a gateway to owning a company. That really is. I can't believe that it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you open a corporation and then here's the E-Myth, right? Like that should go hand in hand. I truly believe so.
Fantastic. Right, let's move on to your experience. So
sure.
As we talked about, I called you a lifestyle entrepreneur, but you've also been described as a serial entrepreneur because of your multiple businesses. So we're just going to talk a little bit about your different businesses that you've got running at the moment. And we will talk about your wedding booking system business because I know you're very proud and you're putting a lot of effort into that. But I want to start with the Level 9 Virtual. So It's a virtual assistance business where you've placed 2,000 VAs and completed 50,000 projects. So initially, sort of like, just tell me about the business, what it does, and I suppose what attracted you to start the business initially.
Yeah. So in 2008, I read The 4 Hour Workweek, and then in that book, he referenced a book called The World Is Flat. And so I read that book, and it was, really the idea of outsourcing everything that you possibly can completely appealed to me. And so I literally took the 4 Hour Workweek, and I was in real estate. I lost everything, lost all the houses that we were working on, all the investments. Literally had no money. I was, staying with my sister, and decided I was going to pack up and I was going to move to Southern California, live by the beach, and build my next thing. And so I decided I was going to do it through the 4 Hour Workweek model. And I actually put that book down on a coffee table and went to coffee shops every day. And on my laptop, I literally built page by page an identical business to what he describes in the book. And I did it page by page, had a huge success with it from basically 2008 through 2014. And it was really, really successful. Then the product, we had some manufacturing problems and all that, and it just kind of fizzled out. But that was kind of my first step into using virtual assistants. I had VAs running everything on the backside. So they did all the, they did all the marketing, social media posting. They did all of the content creation. They built all the websites. We outsourced manufacturing, outsourced fulfillment. All of those things were really, really amazing. And that was my first step. So in November of 2008, I hired my first virtual assistant full-time. Every single day of my life since that one day, I have had a VA working for me every day. So fast forward years and years, I have a VA who's my ops manager. She's been with me forever. She is phenomenal. She runs the show, and she came to me one day and said, "Hey, we get a lot of requests, people asking for you to help them find a VA, and we do it at no cost." And she says, "You should build a VA company and sell VA services, right? We recruit and then you resell the services." And I said, "Nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to run that kind of a business." And she says, "Well, we won't, you won't run it. We will." And I said, "We'll think about it." So 8, 10, a year later, I don't know how long it was, she comes to me and she says, "Hey, here's how much money you've lost not doing it." And I was like, whoa, okay, that's a whole business by itself with how much we've lost. Imagine if we actually tried. And so I said, all right, let's do it. And so we decided to build Level 9 Virtual. And it just, I mean, it kind of got going a little bit. We had 20, 30 clients and we were just kind of humming along, and it's like, awesome. We got this great little business. It's super low stress. There's nothing, they run the show. We've got, decent revenue, and I don't have to do anything. All of our business came from referrals, and it was super easy. And then I launched my other agency, and that took off. And I went, if I could do that with an agency, I could do that with the VA company. And so that's when we kind of put the pedal to the metal, and we really exploded in growth at that point forward. And
was it initially a marketing agency that you?
So I had a marketing agency.
So why don't we talk about that before we get into any more on that? Because there's a story about you having the ideal, what people think is the ideal with the office.
That's right. And, and part of it was I got caught in like the hustle mindset, and, and everybody talks about that, the hustle mindset. And I went from being this lifestyle entrepreneur. I got to travel a lot. I went to Costa Rica for an extended period of time, came back. I got to live in San Diego. I I was all over the place, and I got to travel, and everybody called me a nomad. And it wasn't until I actually met my wife that I actually stopped and said, okay, like I'll put down some roots. But I launched a marketing agency, and somehow got caught in things are humming along and everything's great. And I've got my VAs and they're running it and this and that. And then somehow something tripped, and it was like, well, the success of an agency is the number of butts and seats in your building. And I'm like, oh, well, I only have like a little office space with just me and my VAs. And I'm like, well, maybe I should hire somebody. And so I bring somebody on, and that ends up being successful. And then like, I got addicted to the idea. The next thing you know, you fast forward a year, we've got 27 employees. I have a huge office, 3,500 square foot office space. There's glass walls and doors and like all this fancy nonsense, $50,000 in desks and, and workstations and, a kitchen with all the food that these people could possibly eat. And everybody's making this awesome salary, and they're loving their jobs. They're having fun. We have a full-time videographer that's like videotaping what we do and hanging out. We have TVs hanging on every wall as you turn around. And I'm just like, I'm stressed out. I'm working 14 hours a day, and I have all these employees. And I'm like, why do I work so much if I have this many people?
Did you set up a board? Did you set up a CFO, a COO, a CMO?
No, we didn't get that far.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't get that far.
It was still very much on your shoulders, was it? I
got smart before I got to that point.
Right, okay.
I believe I got smart. Somebody advised me. Basically, I was stressed out. Everybody's making a salary, and when I look at top line revenue, and we look like a successful company. We look like we're doing awesome. But the truth is, our bottom line numbers were garbage.
Right.
Because every time we took a new project, it required new equipment to shoot a commercial. Like, we're not a media company. Like, why were we doing commercials? We're doing websites over here. We're doing Facebook ads over here. We're doing marketing automation and all these things. And there is no like kind of honed in focus. Like, this is what we do and who we do it for. We did everything for everybody. If somebody had some money, we took it. And the problem is when everybody's your customer, nobody's your customer. Yeah. And the business really struggled. And, I wasn't making money. I was taking on debt to cover bills and everything else. And it was super unsuccessful. Despite the massive amount of revenue that it looked like we were doing, we were taking on debt to pay bills, which was ridiculous. Yeah. So somebody advised, they said, hey, you need to cut and run. Like, now's the time. And so I said, I don't know. And I waited and I didn't do anything. And, about 6-7 months later, the guy who gave me the advice, who had just shut down his agency, was, he had a business going. It was doing 50, 60,000 a month. And I thought that was pretty great with a small team, no stress. And then he gave me that advice, and I'm like, but we're doing way more revenue. Like, why would I take advice from this guy? And sure enough, it was 8 or 9 months later, I see an interview with him and another kind of big time marketer. And he went from basically 50,000 a month to 400,000 a month with only 2 more team members. And I realized like I was just doing it all wrong. And so I got back on a call with him. He said, you got to close down your agency. That's the right thing to do. Send these people to get better careers, because there's a ceiling. They can't go anywhere. Right. I lock them into a job that they have no advancement, because they're not going to take my job. you know? And so the next day I let all of the employees go. Then we started like basically watering down our client roster, getting rid of all the clients. It took me another year to actually get out of my office lease and do a settlement on my office lease, because I still had, you know, I think I still had 4 years left on my lease. And, you know, I moved my business into my guest house, and, you know, I relaunched an agency in the wedding space. And then, you know, that catapulted the VA company and all that stuff. So
yeah, we're going to talk about your niching, because I think
yeah,
it's fascinating the way that you've niched all of your businesses.
yeah,
Just one last question about the agency.
sure.
Is there anything that you miss out of the physical presence of people and offices?
Camaraderie. Absolutely. Camaraderie. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun. You know, it's fun to have that. What I've learned to do really well is use my team internally, you know, because now I have a pretty substantial team, almost the same size as the company that I had, that are all virtual, right? Between that and then like channel partners and things that I do and other projects, I really focus on a lot of time. I get on a lot of video calls with friends and colleagues and my team. You know, yesterday, you know, every Monday we do a big stand-up meeting. We call it a stand-up meeting, everybody's sitting, but you know, but the point is, you know, we get all of the VAs on a call, and we're all jamming, talking, joking, laughing, and that's helped a ton. And that's kind of eased that. Literally the only thing that I miss from the agents, like the full on, like working with people thing, is just the camaraderie. It's just fun. You know, it's cool to be around people, water cooler talk, and, you know, all that stuff. But when I look back, I go, man, but that's a huge cost to run that tight. Like, do you sacrifice that fun camaraderie and that like team feeling? Do you sacrifice that for lower margins, less money, and you know, less time, you know, less freedom? I don't know, I'll take this lifestyle over that one.
It's really interesting from my perspective. I gave up my corporate job October 2020, so I've only been doing full time. No, I've done the podcast for years, and I started a few businesses before I left in sort of preparation. But you're absolutely right. That camaraderie, having a cup of coffee with someone, or a drink over the coffee machine, or the water cooler, there is that is different. And especially with COVID times, where we have been enforced into your home for office space, I get why you miss that, but I equally understand the lifestyle that you can now lead. Like, lifestyle I can lead now as an entrepreneur gives me greater freedom to be able to do stuff with the kids, do stuff with my wife, be able to go out for a run or whatever it is, because I've got that flexibility. So it's an interesting one. We could probably do the whole episode on this.
And you know what was interesting is literally last night, as I'm putting my 8-year-old to bed, should be 8 next week or this weekend. What's the date? Yeah, this weekend. You know, I'm sitting in bed, and, you know, we always talk about like kind of highs and lows, right? Like, you know, what was great today, right? And okay, hey, what was a struggle today? And we talk about those things. I say, you know, and then we go through like, hey, what are you grateful for? And it was interesting. She says, you're always home. That's what she said to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she goes, you're always home. Even if you're working, you're just in the back house.
Yeah.
And I can come in and I can give you a hug anytime I want. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so if they were home right now, guaranteed during this podcast interview, you would end up seeing an 8 and a 5-year-old. Like, they would come in and give me a hug, because they do it almost on purpose to interrupt every call I'm on. But it's just part of I think their security, realizing like dad's always home. Yeah. And so that's been, just hearing that, I'm like, yeah, the right choice all day. Yeah. Nothing can take that away.
All right, let's move on to your, so we've talked a little bit about level 9 virtual. What's really interesting about your businesses, even your campground digital stuff.
It's not launched yet. We're still in the process.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, I got that. It's nearly launched.
Yeah, we're getting there.
But it's fascinating that from an all singing, all dancing, doing everything in marketing, you niched on all of your businesses, barring, I suppose, the all-in-one marketing automation software, the app that you've done. But that
we still niche down, right?
Yeah.
We literally only serve it to one niche, like, basically. So yeah.
What inspired to be so niche? Because I often struggle with this. I'm in that position where I kind of do lots of things, and I'm sort of being stretched wider with things. But
Yeah.
talk me through the business model that you are you're living by having such niche businesses that
Yeah.
you're.
So here's what's been really interesting is even with an agency where we had, over 20 employees, we still had generalists, right? Nobody was a specialist. Nobody was an expert in
Yeah.
anything specific. And what we ended up with was mediocre clients and mediocre service.
Yeah.
So you end up with this revolving door where clients don't stay forever because they're not getting the best service, because they can go somewhere more expensive even, but they can get somebody who's a legit specialist at X. When, there's a saying, the riches are in the niches. And there's two things. I run companies and I build businesses for two things. Number one is the lifestyle. I want to be home. I knew at a very young age I would always be a business owner. I saw my parents work their butts off, for pennies. It felt like us not having everything that we had, but I'm like, that guy in town, and I grew up in a small little farm town, that guy in town owns that company and he's the richest guy in town. That other guy who owns that other company, he's wealthy and they don't struggle financially. Their kids have all the things that they need. And when it comes to basketball season, it's not a big deal for them to buy new shoes and all of those things. And he owns a company. And, and I looked at that and I kind of adopted this shield, I feel like, where I was not going to go down the corporate route. I was not going to make somebody else wealthy. So the two areas that I build companies for is, number one, for the lifestyle, and number two is for the money. Like, I am not ashamed to say, like, I am building wealth so that my children have a legacy of wealth behind them when they move forward into their lives. I know what the other side looks like. It's not fun to not have money and to grow up struggling and being financially strapped. Money might not make all things happy, but it sure as hell is easier to find happiness if you don't have that massive weight on your shoulders every day trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Like, that is just a fact. It's just easier. And so, I do love the idea of building wealth and doing those things, having investments and having that opportunity. So, so really for me, that's kind of the core thing. Now, so getting back to the niche thing and our business model, the truth is that if you're really good at something with someone, you can replicate that over and over. You can productize it. Then you can make it very, very easy to sell. And one thing I notice is the moment that you have to start doing, in the agency world, right? You have to start doing like RFPs, and you have to do, a request for a proposal, and you have to do these things. And you're just like, so if I'm getting a proposal, I'm just competing against the next guy. So whoever's paper looks the best is the one who's going to get the deal. That's dumb, right? But if I'm the best at a specific niche, I can gain referral business. I can build authority in that market. I can be known for something very specific to a specific audience. And that's really difficult to compete with. Because if they go to my business and they say, well, okay, he does literally one thing for my business versus this other guy that kind of works with everybody, I'm going with the guy who looks like an expert. Right. And so it was kind of like the idea of going after that expert, that specialist, knowing the industry inside and out. And that's how we kind of, got onto just like the niche side of things. It's easier to be the best at one thing for one person.
Yeah, my mentor, my long-term mentor, said it's a Bruce Lee quote that's, I'm not scared of the person that practices 100 kicks 100 times. I'm scared of the person that does one kick 1,000 times.
Well, it's what's really funny is if you look at and I'm not a fighter, but I think the UFC is super interesting. If you look at the UFC, right, you got the guys who are amazing at boxing want the other guy to stand up. The guy who's amazing at grappling and their ground game, they want him on the ground. And you look at somebody who's known for knockouts, and they're gonna literally, like, they're waiting for the right punch to knock the guy out. They need him standing. They need to be able to get into it and do what they do best. Because if they get on the ground, they're gonna lose. right? And it's so like, I love the idea of niching down, because it's like all you're doing is do what you're best at for the audience that you can do it the best for. And when we choose niches, this is the funny part. Everybody goes, well, how do you choose a niche? And I'm like, you need to know it. First of all, you have to know the niche, be an avid customer in it. You know, where you already spend your own money, you spend your money in that niche. Right. And then, you know, so that's how we came up with the campground business. The campground one was kind of just I'm like, oh man, these guys need help. And it was just merely my wife and I and our kids, we took off. You know, COVID was a mess here in Northern California. And, you know, we take off and we say, look, let's just take our travel trailer. Let's hit the road. Let's go camping. Let's just get out and we'll get out into space and be away from the lockdowns. And so we do. And as we're driving and we're trying to find places to stay, you know, my wife's pulling up on her phone. She's like, I can't really tell what they have. Is this going to be good for the kids? Like, what is it? And, you know, one place when we were out in, where were we? I think we were in Idaho. One of the places that we ended up staying was horrible for our children, that we actually lost the last 3 nights of our stay, lost all the money for it and left and just went somewhere else, because our kids like, oh yeah, you can't ride bikes. You can't do this. You can't. And then we're just like, well, why are we staying here? This is horrible. So we packed up and left, but we couldn't tell from their website. And so I realized that their marketing needed so much help. So as we drove, we just called and, hey, we're trying to check your website, but like, man, there's some issues here. And then that led into another conversation. Hey, why don't we have a conversation about, you know, helping you out with your marketing? And the next thing you know, you got a couple clients and a new business idea is formed.
Fantastic. So let's talk about your wedding booking system.
Sure.
It's the #1 marketing to sales system in the wedding venue industry. So was this inspired by your wedding or somebody else's?
No. This is not inspired by a wedding at all. This is inspired by when I was closing down my agency, the guy that, you know, was giving me some advice, who's been a mentor and he's, you know, one of my closest friends, he says, you know, look at your client roster right now. And if it's Sunday afternoon and you're hanging out with your kids and your phone rings, which one of those clients would you answer the phone for? Well, I'm like, well, there's only one. Out of all of our clients, all 100 and whatever we had at the time, there's one that I would answer the phone for. And that said everything. And he goes, okay, great. So that's personality wise, you guys get along, but what industry are they in? I'm like, well, he owns a wedding venue. Okay. Why is it that you would answer the call for him, besides him being like, you know, friendly and you guys are friends? And I said, well, we're killing it for him. Our results are off the charts for this guy in this niche. We're amazing at what we do for him. And he goes, that's your niche. He goes, it's that easy. And I said, oh my God, you're right. I'm like, I could do this for every venue in the world if I just did just this. And so I took that and I basically solidified a model around it. And part of it is, you know, the guy, he is technically my best friend. We live 70 seconds from one another. He's right down the street. Right. And, you know, I got to become a partner in his venue over time, but what we were able to do for him, I'd been around his business for 15 years. I'd seen the good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah. You know, I knew every dirty secret that poor building had. I knew them all. And, you know, I'd watched all the business moves and failures and successes they'd had. So I knew it inside and out, and I knew what his struggles were. So I knew that I could relate that to somebody just like him. And that's how I ended up in the wedding venue industry.
And what sort of, I don't want to be so crass and talk about exact numbers, but for niching to that area, is it a nationwide business?
It's worldwide. We have venues in 11 countries right now.
11 countries. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm actually just taking on, so then I actually took that model and then I licensed it. And basically I let people run my business with my brand in other countries.
Right.
And so, or in different markets. And so they can buy a license to have that territory. We help them with, you know, the onboarding and fulfillment of clients, and we get them up to speed and do all that. Then they get to run that business and we get royalty.
Right.
So it's similar to like a franchise model, but we're just not going full tilt franchise. We're doing it kind of as a licensing structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move to move back and forth between your different.
That's all right. I know
Because
it gets confusing.
No,
it gets, yeah.
Do you know what it like? Because I've kind of got, so I've got one, two, three businesses that I run at the moment.
Okay.
Potentially a fourth one might be starting
Sure.
with some of the preliminary discussions about it. So I'm quite used to sort of moving around, sort of headspace from one area to another. I can do that. There's some people that can't, but some people can as well. But I want to talk a little bit about VAs as well. So how long, if one of my listeners is thinking, oh, I really need a PA or a VA, I'm not sure how to look for one, what do I need, how's the best way to embed them into my business? So talk about one of your, maybe a client you've already got, or theoretically your ideal client. How would you sort of say to someone that needs a VA or thinks they need a VA, how the package and how to get the most out of that process?
Number one is understanding what you need personally. That's number one. So what areas of your business do you want support in? Okay. Is that support going to be consistent to where you need somebody actually working inside your business with you? We would call those dedicated VAs. If you want somebody in your business working with you on a daily basis, they're going to get to know your business. They're going to get to know you, right? Think of them as a local staff member. Same thing. They just happen to, instead of being at a desk, they're on a computer monitor. So figure that out first. Like, what area do you need? Where do you want support? And I would even step one step back and say, well, what do I want my business model to look like? So for me, when I relaunched my agency, my business, what I did was I said, okay, that model with all those employees in the building and the high overhead and all that stuff, I do not want that at all. But you know what I also don't want is, I don't want to be the person who's actually doing all of the work. I don't want to be the one doing fulfillment. I didn't hire my whole team of VAs when I needed people to take over things. I actually set it up the opposite. I said, okay, this is the model I want. I want to communicate with people, have sales calls, hand the new business off to fulfillment, and not talk to the clients anymore. Right. And I know that sounds, probably as an entrepreneur, maybe you should be good at client services. What I've come to understand is I'm not. Maintaining those long-term client relationships is not my strength. I'm really good at introducing people to my company, finding the needs in their company, finding ways that we could solve problems for them. And then I have amazing people who are really good at managing relationships and keeping clients happy over the long haul. So we have a lot of clients that don't ever leave. So I would say start with understanding what you want. I knew my business model. I knew what I wanted. I wanted all the free time in the world. So the only part of my business I operate, besides like big picture stuff and overseeing financial investments and things like that, is I only do sales calls. And the only reason I do that is because I love it. It's the part that I like. And selfishly, I find opportunities for new business deals through a lot of those sales calls, right? Somebody needs some marketing help, and I might be able to consult them, so I can make a quick quick partnership on something, and we can have a fun project. So selfishly, I still do that. At some point, I'll probably put a sales team in place and I'll back out. However, that's all that I do. Fulfillment and everything else is done. So I looked and said, okay, I want these pieces in place. I need a person to do that, a person do that, a person do that, and I put those people in place. So understanding what you want your business to be like, what you actually need somebody to do internally. And then the next thing is find, I say have a company like ours that already does the vetting, that already does a lot of training, that has a back-end support team that manages the VA. And when they might be late for work or something, we already know it. Right. And then we're communicating, hey, for whatever reason, they, had connectivity issues, or they needed it really quick. They needed to go, I don't know, run an errand really quick. They'll be in about 10 minutes late. Right. Little things like that. Those are the kinds of things that we offer on the backside. And if you were to hire a VA, even if you hire somebody local, one of the hardest things is going, okay, great. I put this person in place. How do I advance them and move them up if they don't initiate that on their own? Right? Are they going to go take more trainings? Are they going to go learn more? Are they going to advance their own self, coming back to the education? Are they lifelong students?
Mm.
Well, we actually force it in our culture, in our company. You don't have a choice. If you're going to work with Level 9 Virtual and we're going to put you with a client, you're also going to learn more. You're going to take trainings that we do internally.
Right.
And so what we do is just different than everybody else. And we force people to get better. That's part of our philosophy. Right. And so that's how I would get started. Then I would cut your teeth. I would pull the trigger. I would invest some money, get a VA, get them in your business, and get used to assigning tasks, managing, somebody remote. Practice. The practice costs a little bit of money, but it's totally worth it in the long run. And using a company like ours, the nice thing is that we support you in how to execute that.
Right. So one of the words I've just written down while you've been talking is KPIs, so key performance indicators. So it feels very much to me that you measure things for your clients. Also that the stuff that you do is more the high value stuff, and the VAs give you the support around you, not just below you, but around you,
absolutely,
to enable you to do that. So how do you plan your key performance indicators? How do you measure your VAs that work for you, not Level 9, but
right?
Your VAs. Let's talk about it personally for you. So how do you measure? How do you create these KPIs for your team?
Well, what do you need out of them?
Right.
Start there. Right. So you need to start there. So what do I need out of them? So if I have somebody who's doing prospecting to help us get new clients, okay, great. What do I need out of them? I need them to initiate X number of conversations, a day, a week, a month. I need them to get X number of responses. And when those responses come in, how many of those convert to appointments? That's a good one. If it's, let's see, I'm trying to think if it's, a graphic designer who's doing projects for us, we're talking about speed. We're talking about quality. If we have revisions, right? Like, okay, hey, I've assigned this to you and we've had to have 3 revisions. So something over here in this initial communication wasn't clear because it took us 3 tries to get it right. So that means something I did, if I'm assigning the task, or somebody else on the team, they had a breakdown in their communication. We need to fix that over here because it'll reduce the number of revisions on this side. And every time there's a revision, it costs dollars, right? And so that's where we would go back to the beginning. What caused you to have that problem? We don't necessarily blame, that's part of I think our culture that's been so amazing. We don't jump in and go, well, it's the VA's fault who did it, and they're having all these revisions, so you're not understanding. No, we come all the way back to the beginning. What was said on the front side that caused that? Because if we can fix it, it doesn't happen anymore. But as far as setting KPIs, it's all about what do you need out of them. And so, we look at some of those details. Speed is important. I believe businesses need good velocity. They need to be moving, cash needs to be moving. We need to be flowing through projects. And so speed is a huge one for us. So we really do monitor, actually, that is one of our KPIs.
Right. It's really interesting because, as we were saying about Traction, the book that I've suggested you read, it's really about, so Traction is about growing a business and gaining traction in the market. And actually, something that it sounds like you're doing for your business and for Level 9 is you create processes. You think about what do I need or you need out of the VA, and then you might document it. You would document it, and then they can read over it, have any questions. And it seems a lot of early stage startups don't ever think about that next step of actually creating processes for everything. I know I coach a couple of startups, and they haven't launched yet, but they are very much thinking from day to day, task to task, action to action. And I think it's really important that you actually, as early on as possible, create a number of documents. It doesn't have to be a 70-page document, but a sort of 5 to 10-page document on what you want. You do it for a job description. Why don't you do it for your employees as well?
Well, it's the operations, right? So they're SOPs. And what you're doing is that there's standard operating procedures. And so as an example, I actually just took somebody and brought somebody on as my executive assistant. And he's been with us for years, and he's amazing. And he's gotten to bounce around and do a lot of different things. And he was kind of, hey, I kind of need to take a step back. He was our head trainer for one of our training programs. And, he stepped back. He said, I just need to do something different. And I'm going to, I'll work somebody else into that training position. And he came to me and said, hey, I'd like to do something different. Where can we find a spot? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what would be great is if you became my assistant and you became my executive assistant. And so he's actually the reason that I'm on this podcast, because Terrence reached out to you.
Terrence. Yep. Terrence.
Yeah. Right. And so, so Terrence is the one. He's out. Well, let's get you on some podcasts. Okay. So that's one thing. But so the way that we teach them to do things is super simple. We make SOPs very easy. I want my processes to be so simple that if I'm gone and let's say something catastrophic happened to me and my wife had to try to step in here and go, okay, we got to keep things going for a while to figure out like, how do we get to whatever we're going to do with this thing? Yeah. We need all those processes in place. I can't be the bottleneck. I can't be the lever that actually either makes things go or turn off. Right. Yeah. And so our SOPs are super important. So every time that we're going to teach anybody anything, we have the exact same process in how we do it. And so I get Terrence in and I say, okay, great. Here's how I want you to do your prospecting. And I make him a video. I record my screen and I talk through exactly what I'm doing it as I'm doing it. If there's any documentation to it, scripting or whatever else, I give it to him in a document. So he has a video that hits in multiple areas. So you look at the way people learn, the way people consume information, you kind of have four people, right? You have your people who are auditory. They need to listen to things. That's me. You have your people who are visual. They need to see it. You have your people who are kinesthetic. They need to actually practice it and do it. And then you have your people who are auditory digital. They want to read, they want to analyze, and then they want to, obviously execute. So with those four different types of people, the way that I do it is I write up a quick little blurb that says, hey, here's what I'm going to have you do. Here's kind of the process flow. I made the video. The video is visual, audio. He's seeing it. So then he's going to go do it. So that's going to hit the kinesthetic. And then because I wrote it, there's the auditory digital type person. So I make sure that every single person in our entire company has the ability to learn whatever it is we need them to learn, no matter how they learn. And then from there, they take that and they say, okay, great. Now I'm going to go do it. I'm going to document it as I do it. I'll take my screenshots. I'll write it up. And now we have audio, video, written, screenshots, like everything you can imagine, all into a standard operating procedure. And we do it literally for everything. So we do something new. We need an SOP for that. Create it. And they go, okay, I got it. And then they do it. Now they don't even need me because they're creating new stuff. So they make the video, they create all of it, and then I'm not even involved in it. So we have SOPs I've never even heard of at this point, which is kind of cool.
It is really good.
Yeah.
So you've started multiple businesses.
Yeah.
Bit of a curveball question. Have you thought about acquiring businesses?
I have. And when the right ones come, possibly. There's got to be enough leverage, enough reason to do it. I haven't found anything that I'm like in dire desire to buy as far as
this is a good time in COVID times where
I think 2021 is the year. Right. So everybody got some stimulus money. They got their PPP loans. They got their EIDL loans, everybody, and I'm talking the US, right? But all that stuff kind of came in and they got to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you go look, like it was funny, we bought a travel trailer right before COVID hit. And then, so we got to go travel and do all that stuff. And I was blown away at the number of people who bought fifth wheels, travel trailers, motorhomes in the US. Like the sales went through the roof. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought everybody was financially hurt. Nope. Everybody was fine. But what's going to happen is, I mean, we see this in the wedding industry, the financial impact is about to hit. It's coming. And you're going to see it. I mean, everybody in the middle of it, what happened to the real estate market? Skyrocketed. Why? I mean, and I'm talking again for the US, interest rates don't exist. They're super low. They're on the rise now. Interest rates are super low. Everybody refied. properties are increasing in value. So they take cash out, they're using that cash to go buy toys and all this stuff. And the economy is completely fabricated. This is fake. And it's got to come down. So yes, you're absolutely right. Coming up, we're going to see people losing it and they're going to need to dump their business.
Yeah.
So we've just been stacking cash and kind of waiting, and we'll see what kind of comes up.
And so one of the exercises that I've had to do is keep different businesses with different accounts and different ways of accounting.
Yes.
How do you structure your sort of setup of a business? So I'm just thinking, so someone's listening to this thinking they've got one business, they might want to start another one. Sort of like, how do you keep them as separate entities, or is there a lot of sort of crossover and
There's no crossover? Okay. So here's the interesting thing. So we've been able to figure out a way to keep them separate, then combine them. Okay. Right. So that sounds more complicated than it is.
Well, no, my only point is that, for example, the wedding business has probably struggled. You can't get married, or if you get married, it's very small numbers. Was there support from other businesses of your wedding business? Oh, really? So you were able to keep afloat?
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. So that friend of mine that I told you was my first wedding venue client, who also then made me a partner in his venue. And so, we've done a lot of stuff together. He's very much a prepper in every sense of the word. And we've been, by his advice to me, we've been planning for an economic collapse for a long time, whether it be because of a pandemic, whether it be because of now we're seeing like oil prices, right? Like all these things. We've been prepping for this for a long time. So we buy metals, right? Buy a lot of silver, crypto, things like that, real estate. So like we've been playing this game, stacking cash, like doing all those things ready for when something bad happens. And now something bad kind of happened. But the thing that's been interesting is in the wedding space, we haven't felt the impact really. Right. We had some months where the venue itself wasn't it wasn't in the black, but in the long run, at the end of the year, when you look back at 2020, you're like, yeah, we still did great. Right. It's just on the month on month out, like we didn't have cash flow coming in to support overhead. But in my agency and in my, level 9 virtual and stuff, level 9 actually got hit really, really hard right in the beginning. So COVID hit, lockdown. A lot of our clients are agencies who use our VAs. They lost their clients.
Right.
So when the agencies lost their clients, they stopped paying their VA bill and the VAs, and so we immediately saw that kind of dip. And I went, whoa, hold on. This could get really bad really fast. We need to think about how to pivot, and everybody said, oh, you just need to lower your prices. And I'm like, whoa, no, that's not the answer. So what I did is I actually raised my prices on one service. Then we rolled out a second service, which is a project-based service, which is, hey, I've got projects. I just need to get them off my plate, but I don't need somebody full-time because I just don't have enough work for them.
Yeah.
But nobody whose business declined is like, well, I don't want to have a business anymore. Of course they wanted to survive. So what we wanted to do was be a support. Hey, you have that graphic design task that you just need help with, assign that to what we call a VA pod. Let our pods do it. You just buy a block of hours. It's affordable for every business size. And then we'll help you just get things going. And sure enough, that skyrocketed. And that was the enormous growth we had in 2020 came because of that. And then we converted a lot of those people into dedicated, clients, which was awesome.
Fantastic. And the whole point of being able to pivot your business is so important in economic hard times. So this is genuine. Well done you for being able to find that, because there's a lot of people that not a lot, as I say, it's a generalization, but some people just go, I can't do anything. The economy's terrible. Right. I'm doing nothing. I'm gonna either lose my business or what. And actually, it's a challenge. It's an opportunity to spring something else up in economic hard times.
Absolutely.
So, the contrarian view of the world is one I hold true.
Yes, I know we say that word a lot. We talk about his name's Patrick, my business partner in the venue, and then he's also a client of mine, or our venue is a client, and we talk about being contrarians a lot, and something for some reason didn't ever stick in going through like regular kind of education, and kind of just the indoctrination into kind of the way the world works, and you need to get a job and climb the ladder and do those things. It really didn't stick with me. It didn't stick with him. And so our views have always been like, well, hold on, question that really quick.
Yeah.
Because there's an alternative. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean there's not another way.
Yeah.
So let's be okay with questioning everything. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing, which is also fortunate, is my daughters have picked that up big time around me. And they question everything. And so all of a sudden I'm like, whoa,
so much fun.
Yeah, it's super funny. And so, I was actually having a conversation with my, my second grader teacher, and she was telling me all about her, and, oh yeah, she questions everything and she wants to challenge things. And I said, oh yeah, she's a negotiator. My 5-year-old and, almost 6 and my 8-year-old, they negotiate everything. And so
mine does as well. My eldest daughter, she's just turned 7, and everything is a negotiation.
It is.
It's so funny because sometimes they like sharing my parenting. It's not a tip at all, but you sometimes sit there and you think, why can't you just do?
That's right.
What I asked you to do,
because you can't.
Well, no, exactly.
Somebody asks you to.
Exactly. I have to learned it from me or my wife.
I have to come to terms with that literally every day. And it's funny because they are literally like a 50-50 split of my wife and I, and it's like, no, she's doing exactly what you do. Like, do you realize you do that? And she's like, oh yeah. And then, and then it's the other side. I'm like, why don't you just do what I asked? Well, and, Christina will be like, well, because you won't do what somebody like, and I'm like, oh man. But I was going to tell you this quick story. So my kids, where our property is, we don't get a lot of driving, not a lot of people drive by here, and they always want to do a lemonade stand. But they want to do it like in our front yard, like off the road, and nobody could see them. And so instead what they do is they basically set one up. No cars come down our road for, most of the day. And then they go, okay, how can we fix this? And so of course my business-minded daughter goes, okay, let's fill this up. And they go all the way over to a neighbor's house, knock on their door, and sell them a cup of lemonade.
Amazing.
And this is during COVID, when it's like, don't touch me. And then they go around. Next thing you know, they come back and they've got like $8. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this is amazing. So finally they say, hey, we want to do another lemonade stand. And I'm like, all right, we need to do this right. And I'm like, I'm going to talk to you guys about location and about visibility and about, like that. Yeah. And so we do, and we set up this amazing lemonade stand up on like kind of a corner, and we set up signs on both directions so everybody can see us. Right. They've got signs and they're standing there. And in about an hour and a half, they sell out twice. My wife has to go make more. Yeah. They sell out twice, and they end up making like $40. And I'm just like, girls, this is the game right here. This is it. And I said, this is the rest of your life. Let's keep going, I'm like, it's awesome. So we'll start with lemonade, and let's figure out what we're going to do next. Mandarins? We can sell mandarins. Let's do that. We got mandarin trees.
All right. I'm conscious of time. Unfortunately, it's my time frame, which is a little bit short today. I just want to give a shout out to Rare Vlog. I know on YouTube you're doing some vlogs on there, which are amazing. So obviously keep that up. The last section is about future endeavors. So what's the future plan for you going forwards?
Okay. A couple quick things, actually. I decided, that's the reason that Campground Digital hasn't fully launched yet, is I noticed that I was starting to spread myself thin, meaning I was spreading my attention in some varying, multiple directions, a little too much, to the point that I was missing opportunities. I was missing big growth opportunities, like in Level 9. Right now, Level 9's on a massive trajectory. We have really, really a lot of hyper growth. Right now, we're taking on tons of clients. Our team, and what we're getting really good at, and where I'm focusing my attention, is on maximizing profitability. And so we're looking at efficiencies and, how can we tighten down over here to increase profit even 2%, right? Like, what can we do to just one little thing, right? Can we move somebody to where they become a profit center over here instead of being part of our internal labor force and things like that? So that's my future endeavor, is to continue to grow Level 9. I am taking one side step with wedding booking system, with the future of where the wedding industry is going to be in 12 months, 18 months. Again, looking forward, right? I'm shifting a little bit of our service model from service to be do it yourself. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a program, teach them how to do everything we do, step by step by step, give them some back-end support, some weekly coaching, things like that. So I've never done that for that industry. So I'm going to offer that. So that's part of what's coming in the next quarter. Then the last thing is real estate investments. I'm prepping. I'm getting ready for the market to have a correction and watch the interest rates rise, and hopefully while prices fall. I know it's probably further out than I'm hoping, but that's a lot of the future endeavors that I'm looking at right now. It's more solidifying, and then it's more real estate investments.
Fantastic. All right. So we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're short, quick fire questions, been described as thought provoking as well. So, but they don't need a short fire answer. It's up to you. All right. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
Niching down.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Remove yourself from your business because you're not always going to be in it.
Who's helped you most in your career?
All of these books and educational things that I've read and learned from, everything that I've been self-taught has been the most valuable.
And have you, this isn't one of the questions.
Okay.
Have you employed coaches or mentors?
Oh yeah. I've had many coaches in different aspects, real estate investment coaches and, even crypto investment coaches, business coaches. I've taken every course that's imaginable in marketing and sales. And so you name it, somebody's probably my coach in some format. Yeah.
Do you have any regrets?
Man, probably not closing the agency down sooner, because it was taking my attention and my time away from my family. And I missed that little moment that I probably, looking back, that would be my regret. Yeah.
Okay. What are you most proud of?
My children.
And what does legacy mean to you?
It's what's left after I'm gone. It's what my children get to experience based on my efforts in my life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe. It's been absolutely fascinating speaking to you. The last is for you is, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
You know what? The easiest right now is level9virtual.com. There's a book a call button right on there. joerare.com is another one, but level spelled out the number 9virtual.com is an easy place to reach me. Other than that, you can find me on Facebook. It's pretty easy to find me. Shoot me a message, ask me a question. I love it. Yeah.
All right, Joe, thank you so much for your time. It's
you got it.
fascinating. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Cheers. Bye.